Dutry, Jeff Reese, Roger Friedel, Paul Hongman, Brett Rody, Lindsay Nesson, Kurt Fertig, Paul Folgen. Shari, you don't look like Paul Folgen.
I may be in his chair, but I hope I don't look like him.
Shari Euler, Mark Christensen. We appreciate you being here this evening. We have an opening ceremony. Lindsay is going to offer a word of prayer, after which Shari will lead us in the pledge, and we will be praying. If you're uncomfortable with the prayer, you may step out and join us in a minute. Otherwise, Mrs. Nesson.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day we have to meet here today. Thank you for this beautiful city which we have to live in. Please bless us as we discuss city business tonight, that we will have thy Spirit to be with us and make the best choices for our citizens. And we love thee, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Stand and repeat the pledge with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Council, we have an agenda. Any questions on the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda.
Second it.
Motion made by Diana, seconded by Lyle V. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of minutes, September 4th, 2018. Any questions on the minutes?
I make a motion we approve the minutes for September 4th.
Second.
You gotta get faster, Holmes.
Yeah, you gotta hit it, man.
Motion made by Lyle Vance, seconded by Jeffrey. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Years of Service Award, Mark Christensen, Community Service Director for 10 years. 10 fun-filled years.
You still like it? Yeah.
It's
great to work with them.
Thank you for all you do for the city, Mark.
You've
We
done a
appreciate
great
it.
job.
Yeah, thank you.
We do indeed appreciate what you do. 10 years. Did you work someplace before you came here?
No, I interned down at Ivans City, but not full time.
Okay. We're glad you chose Tremonton for a while. You are indeed.
For a while.
For a while.
Where are you going?
Public comment. Some time for the public to address the council if you feel so inclined. This is your chance. Anyone? Your chance is gone. Okay, discussion and consideration of approving the July warrant register. Questions on it, council?
I make a motion we approve the July warrant register.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Lyle, seconded by Brett. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion and consideration of approving the July financial statements. Questions on those?
I'll make a motion we approve July financial statements.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Jeff, seconded by Diana. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Just so you guys all know, okay, we have had our packets mailed to us a period of time in the past, and we have had the opportunity to look over the warrant registers and financial statements and the minutes from previous meetings, and so we don't have to talk about them much. We have no questions about it, so just so that you're informed. Discussion and consideration of adopting ordinance number 18-13, amending the Tremonton City Corporation Land Use Code, Title I Zoning Ordinances, Chapter 1.16, Overlay Zones, creating the Stokes-Warner sign standards. Sean, you have anything?
You know, we talked a little bit about it in work session. I would just summarize in this policy session that these are legislative decisions and decisions made by the city council through ordinance. The standard and test is if these decisions are valid, if they are reasonably debatable, if they promote the general welfare of the community, which which really means that you have a lot of discretion on what you think is the best course of action in making this decision. My thought has been, and I've expressed this previously, that I believe that we should take a step back, do a land use planning process that looks to create a vision for each zoning district and identifies the types of land uses that are beneficial for each zoning district, that achieves the vision, that takes a look at the types of densities that we want in our residential zones, that also looked at future land uses that we would annex into the city. And then based upon that, that organizing foresight by going through the planning process, then it really comes down to just administering the plan thereafter. What we tend to do is get a lot of applications and react to those applications. And so at this point, that's why I'm recommending that we take a longer view and take a step back and really decide what we want to become. I would say that the whole premise of zoning is just that, organizing land uses that you think are appropriate and beneficial within each zone and appropriate. And so, this is certainly right in line, deciding if you want to do it or not. And there's not always clear-cut decisions with these land uses. And that's why I think if we created a vision through a planning process, you would have a clear vision of what you want, and maybe these decisions would become clear. I think it would add clarity to future applications that would come forward. Because certainly there will be from time to time applications that come forward for requests for amending our zoning districts or different standards within development. So that's my recommendation. It is different than the Planning Commission, and I say my recommendation respectfully. Realizing that these issues, that there's no clear-cut decision, that these decisions are reasonably debatable, and they might have a different perspective. But I think I would just advise you to go through a planning process. And
What do you think the time element is there?
Honestly, I think a year would be kind of an abbreviated process, just because it takes time to write the scope. I have a good idea of what I think would, what the scope should be, but we have to put it down on paper. The Planning Commission should review it and participate in identifying the scope. The City Council, obviously would be as well. Then we need to go out and solicit individuals, make proposals and evaluate those, and then do the plan. So it does take a fair amount of time. I think a year to a year and a half would sort of be a reasonable time frame.
Well, and then I think in this case that on this sign, that this is something that we ought to okay the overlay and allow it to happen. But I think as part of that motion, and I'd be glad to make that, I think that we should push back to the Planning Commission and have them address commercial highway zoning as their very first project and come up with a zoning plan that supports the taller signs along the corridor over there. So I would make a motion that we adopt Ordinance 1813 and we charge the Planning Commission to work with commercial highway zone and get that, at least start making that discussion. I don't know, at least starting to have the discussion, because I really don't think it's fair that anyone that comes in along that zone should be allowed to have the same height assigned and the same kind of look. So, and I agree with Jeff on that. So,
Before you make your, you adopt the ordinance and that type of stuff, in the previous discussion we had at the workshop, based on the fact that these signs that they're trying to put in are similar to the ones that are out that we've already previously approved, I think we can move on it too. That's what you're talking about, the overlay.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we're being consistent, then I think we ought to go ahead and go for this, adopting this ordinance too.
Any further discussion, guys? Earl?
I'll second that motion.
I
Okay.
didn't make a motion.
Oh,
Wait, Brett made-
Brett.
I made the motion.
No, Brett made the motion.
Brett made the motion, second by Lyle Vance. Lyle Holmgren. Holy crap, it's been a long day.
Clearly.
Okay.
At least he said crap.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Roll call.
Oh, yes, roll call, thank you. It's been a really long day.
Let's go that way this time.
Yes, Lyle Vance?
Want to start on this end?
Yeah.
Lyle Vance, aye.
Diana, aye.
Jeff, I.
Lyle H. I.
And Brett, aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, discussion and consideration of adopting ordinance number 18-14, amending the Tremont City Corporation Land Use Code, Title I zoning ordinances, Chapter 1.08, Tremont City Corporation Land Use Code, Title I. Hold on, I just read that once. Forget it. Okay, commercial and industrial zones to allow tattoo businesses as a permanent use within the commercial district, CD, and the commercial highway, CH district. Questions, council?
So this is a recommendation from the planning commission also?
Yes. Mhm.
You know, one thing that I think, we talked about in work session, the only thing that I would add to it, as I understand the planning commission's recommendation, there was a prohibition as far as the location. They're recommending permitted within the commercial district, which is essentially most of Main Street. It's all the downtown business core, all the way out to I-84, except at a location if it's within 300 feet to a residential zone. And so that was the recommendation.
What is a residential zone? Is it a resident period, the place where people are living?
I interpreted it, and you can, this might be a point of discussion. I interpreted it to be, I wrote it into the ordinance. If you scroll down, now therefore, I think I said anything within chapter 7, because for example, there is a mixed use zone that we have, and residential uses are allowed within that zone. But I understood potentially that it was more for traditional residential zones, and maybe Brett could add clarity to
Correct.
the recommendation.
Yeah, not residents within the district itself.
Okay.
You know, so if there's an apartment building downtown, or or someone occupies one of the upper floors, that's not really considered a residential. The other thing too is the code also states that there were some distances to churches and whatnot, but they felt the same, that if the church, if they establish a church within that district, then there shouldn't be any kind of a restriction on distance.
Any further discussion, council?
So it would have to be 300 feet from a church, or no?
I don't
The
think
old,
it's in
I think
there,
I
so-
think the code says it has to be a certain distance from parks, churches, and residential. And they
Oh.
line through parks and churches and residential within the zone,
So is this
They line through parks and
saying
They
churches?
that
scratched it out.
they scratched it out.
I wonder why. What was the reasoning on that?
Within the commercial zone, within a commercial zone or commercial highway zone, that
Mhm.
works. If the church is just,
Right. So in other words, if along Main Street, someone comes in, all of a sudden establishes a church, all of a sudden that puts a 300-foot radius around them that doesn't allow certain businesses to come into town.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You see, and so is that fair to the businesses that want to come in?
Established.
And someone could strategically come in and place some churches all through downtown and not allow anyone to come in. And I think that's what they were talking about.
And what about parks? Why did they line through parks?
Only the downtown park here, because it was a non-existing park when
because-
we made the commercial. So Midland Square.
I
I
think
see.
Library Park has some CD within close proximity.
Correct. But only Midland Park was the only one they said that it shouldn't be part of that.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a
Yes.
question of Councilman Rhodey? So I wasn't aware that there was a state code relative, this is land use, I'm talking about land use for tattoos. Was familiar with that being, that they have specific standards for smoke shops or vapor shops. I'm not sure what the code calls it out at. Do you know, is there a specific?
But I gave you a
Was he
code.
was he using the smoke
Well,
shop?
yeah, there is a state code, but the state code is very, very small. It just talks. The state code just says that you can't. It's something to do with the minors, that you can't tattoo minors without permission, and I think that's all it is, isn't it? Yeah. So the state code's fairly small. Now, I did some research today, and like this one I've got up here is Salt Lake County's code, and it's 27 pages of regulations, and I don't know how a tattoo shop works. I don't know who mandates the regulation. I don't know, is that a state regulated?
I think a health department.
Business?
I think the individual health department, so Bear River Health Department come in and do an inspection, and I think they regulate to some extent. The last time we had a tattoo shop, I don't know if you remember, but
Oh yeah.
but they came in and had some conversation. Kevin Christensen talked a little bit about it, but I think they do an inspection before a business license can be issued to a tattoo parlor. But I was asking more from a land use perspective. I didn't know if there were any proximity requirements, relative to a tattoo. I didn't think there was. I was familiar with the section you kind of referenced about minors, and I can't remember what else. There was a
Correct.
background check associated with it.
I've got it on here. Somewhere. I don't know where it's at, but the Utah State Code's pretty vague, actually.
Okay. So the standards you were talking about, were they attributed to smoke shops, where they talked about
Yeah.
agricultural
Yeah.
uses, and
Mhm.
churches, schools?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they were kind of bouncing back off of what we were doing with smoke shops and
Using
things
that
like
as
that.
kind
Yeah,
of the standard.
as an example. Yeah.
Okay.
Not that there's a regulation on tattoo shops,
Council. Opinions. Decisions. Motions.
It's been suggested that if we're uncomfortable putting a business like this on Main Street, are there some alternatives that we could put them on, like that's off of Main Street?
Well, I would, if I could interject, I would just say maybe that was discovered through this land use plan that I was talking about. Having a professional help us, along with it's a public process that the public can get involved with as well, and help provide input on what they'd like to see or what the vision is for different zones. But I think a plan like that might help the process.
Has there been any public input on any of this?
See, that's just where I was gonna go. Well, this was published in the paper, everybody knew this was
That's where
coming.
I'm coming from.
And there's not a soul here on public comments. Well, then maybe probably should have come on public comments.
Sorry,
Yeah.
we've never been to a council meeting.
Oh.
That's my bad, I apologize.
There was a public hearing held, whenever you change the land use code, there's a public hearing that's held at the planning commission, optional for city council, but obviously you.
And there were a lot of people that attended that.
Right.
Was there?
And there was no negative.
There were no negative comments.
Mm.
I've received some, but Yeah. You want residents of Tremonton. Where are we at on this thing?
Yes, we need to move forward, backward, or what?
Brett's the chair on it, really. You've been with the planning commission the whole time, Brett.
Well, you know, I believe in what the planning commission's trying to do. I would like to see a little more regulation to this rather than just a permitted use. I would be more comfortable making it a what's it called?
So it's a conditional use.
Conditional use.
Yeah, and then you prescribe the standards that
Yeah.
you evaluate, you know, an application by.
You know, because that, you know, we're looking at, in developing this downtown and everything, we're looking at a year or two of getting that done. And are we willing to have this discussion every time someone wants to come in? Or, you know, I don't know. But I know that the planning commission deliberated quite a while on it, and they're very progressive. They want to see the businesses grow in Tremonton. They want to see things stay here. They want to see a good sales tax base. I have some very conservative people on that committee, and they didn't have any problem with this. So that's their opinion.
This would be the first tattoo business in Box Elder County, I think.
Well, we had one before. We've had one before here.
Brigham doesn't have any.
Brigham doesn't allow it. No, it's not permitted in Brigham, in any of their code. Logan has it in Ogden.
What do you want to do, guys?
I think the thing that really sours a couple of us, maybe it's me, is because, and it's nothing against you guys, is that last time we had one, we had nothing but pure pain, and I think and that does not reflect towards you guys, but I'm just saying that's probably what puts the sour taste in your mouth.
So,
You know,
so
How long
Jeff is,
ago was that, if you don't mind?
God.
it's been a couple of years.
Yeah, I
probably.
think so.
What kind of problems can you discuss that?
No.
No,
We're new
no,
in
probably,
town, so
it's
we-
all,
It was all health and other things, even, yeah.
Would you be willing to put us on like a conditional?
No, I'm sorry, this isn't public
Yeah.
comment time. Sorry. This is
so that,
council.
but that is my question, if this was conditional use, how would
That would take care of it,
that would take care of it? So
And I
in
think-
in
I think-
motion,
yeah.
if this, but what are those conditions?
God, I have to look at
Is that something we would let staff kind of establish, or how do we handle that?
The main thing, as I understand it, conditional use means that every time someone wants to come in
You gotta
and
go through
apply
this.
for this, they have to go
You
through
do.
this process.
You do.
And that's, you know, that versus if it's permitted, we don't know that's coming in, it's just gonna come in.
It's just allowed.
It's just allowed.
Yeah, I would say this, though. I think, you know, Brett's explanation is great. I just expanded upon it by saying, so it is a conditional use, which essentially allows the city to do a site-specific review, but you review it against standards. And you can turn down a conditional use if you find that there's a countervailing public interest in doing so, but you have to make that finding. So usually what you do is when you have a land use like this, you want to have specific conditions whereby, you know, the city staff or the applicant can review their application by, you know, like the proximity requirement is an element of a condition. You could have, you know, other proximity requirements. You could have potentially the number of shops per population, like we do with our alcohol licensing. So there's different standards, but and we have some general standards in our development code, but I think for this use you would want to, you know, have some specific standards you know, that would address what your concerns are, if it's proximity, if it's a number, if it's, you know, potential conflicts that you can foresee or you're trying to mitigate. So I wouldn't recommend that we just try to make these up, you know, in the meeting. I think these are things that are better thought.
The last parlor that we brought in, am I calling it right? Is it parlor or is it salon or what's
Or studio.
Studio, okay. The last studio we brought in, we put them under a conditional use, correct?
I can't.
We did.
Okay.
We did. And so I'm wondering if we can't draw on some of that as our template to at least get started. And then this document that I provided, Salt Lake County's regulations, if you will, I think we ought to review that as well. I don't know what the licensure of a tattoo studio is. I don't, you know.
We could have, you could even.
Are there
have a
state
fair-
standards?
Well, I think there are relative to, there certainly are for the health side of things, as I understand it, and they might be administrative rules through the health department. I think there is some criminal, I think I'm falling short of criminal, but I mean, there's some standards about the age and getting permission, you know, by the parent to essentially allow for tattoos to occur on minors. So there's a few things, but it's not very lengthy. But I also would, I think we could benefit by making sure that Dustin, you know, can answer that question for us. 'Cause this is my recollection. It's been a few years since we've dealt with the issue.
I like every bit of this, but I think one thing, is it possible that we could have a work session with the planning commission to see how they got to this point? Because I feel two totally disconnects here between this council and the planning commission. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you could certainly do that. And I would say that they're advisory, just like, you know, I am to you. And
Yeah.
sometimes you take my recommendations and sometimes
we tell you to stuff it.
Yeah. And I think that's the same true of any advisory board, you know.
The thing that concerns me is Brett said they were adamant, you know, and they were strong about it. And for some reason I'm missing, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, it says in here, the Utah Code 7610-2201, and it's just a paragraph. Tattooing and body piercing of a minor prohibits anyone from performing or offering to perform a tattoo or body piercing upon a minor without receiving the consent of the minor's parent or legal guardian. Establishes that a person is not guilty of a violation if he or she had no actual knowledge of the minor's age and reviewed, recorded, and maintained a personal identification number for the minor prior to performing the body piercing and tattoo. That's all there is on the Utah State Code.
From a health department standpoint, they must have input into this.
Well, they must, because they must regulate sterility, waste, all kinds of things.
Is there going to be piercing, body
No.
piercing? You don't do that?
No.
Okay. So that's.
So what do you want to do, council?
Where you at?
I think we need to get together with the planning.
I just think we're
Commission too.
disconnected between that for some reason. Nothing I don't break, you brought everything you can.
Yeah, I mean, they just feel this is a business like any other business. And honestly, that's their feeling, is it's just another business, and it ought to be allowed to exist like any other business in town. I mean, there really wasn't a lot more to say about that. That's, they.
So what are the concerns then? Clearly there's concerns here.
What are the concerns? Yeah.
What are the concerns?
Well, their parking is not a concern because they have clients, and so they have appointments. So it's only one or two people at a time that come and park out front. So that's really not an issue. Is it going to bring about an area that's unsafe for other people to, I mean, what kind of clientele is it? Is it, you know, I mean, now all of a sudden you're categorizing people and you can't do that. You know?
You know, I see.
And everyone gets, you know, I think it was mentioned one time before, whether here or another place, that 30% of Americans are tattooed. And there's a lot of people here in town that get tattoos.
Every day, I see.
Yeah. And so, you know, do we want to be letting that business go out of town, or do we want to keep it here locally?
Well, you know, I myself, I guess I'm not seeing, I guess I can't see where the, you know, looks to me like this is a regulated business, both by the health department and then by the state. I guess I'm just, maybe I'm missing something. I don't know.
Any inspiration down here?
I mean, you guys would be welcome to go talk to members of the planning commission. I don't know that we're going to gain a whole lot by having a meeting with them, but you know, because like Sean said, they're advisory, and so we kind of take whatever they say.
I agree that, but we're so far apart.
Yeah.
Why are you against it, Jeffrey?
Probably history.
Yeah.
Probably history, yeah, and I don't know if that's fair or not. And I'm not against it, I just am concerned.
Concerned.
And that's where it comes in, that's why I feel more comfortable with conditional use, is why.
Diana, any opinions?
Conditional use might be a real good thing.
If it were to happen, the conditional use would be required, but I'm still back at the point that Brigham doesn't allow it. I'm not sure why we need to.
Okay, so we need to move forward somehow with a motion or not.
So if we wanted to move forward with a conditional use, what's the process in that?
Well, so, you know, what I'd recommend, if that's what you want to consider, is coming up with specific conditions to address, you know, your issues. And I was reaching back in my memory, and I think it was a conditional use that, that the last one was done by, and there were specific conditions, and maybe that might be helpful to review that. But I think we need to come up with standards, you know, that are clear. That's what the state code really envisions, is these standards whereby, you know, anyone can apply the standards. Like conditional use is an administrative decision. You know, we talked about the difference between administrative decisions and legislative. Administrative decisions are where you're applying the ordinance, essentially. And so I think those standards need to be included within the ordinance so that we can apply them fairly and equitably. So I think that's what you're lacking, you know, currently, other than that one condition. I mean, you could change, if you feel like it's only a proximity issue, you know, then potentially you could change it to conditional use and approve it as it is.
And
But
when
there's
we
more
say,
issues.
excuse me, when we say commercial district, within the commercial district, what are we saying? And that's not just for you guys, but for anybody coming in. It's just down Main Street, one block off? What does that mean?
So,
It's not part of our tradition.
I'm gonna step to this map, the zoning map.
You know what?
But here's Main Street.
Right,
There's the crossroads.
right.
So it's essentially here, kind of this core town, part of town, you know, we are approximate here. Goes along this side, and then this is all commercial highway zoning. So everything in Peak and everything in Tangerine is
is considered our commercial district.
Well, the pinkish color is the commercial highway, and the tangerine color is the central business district or central district. Or commercial district.
So we are keeping it right on Main Street, and we're not letting it out. I mean, because like you guys were saying, there's people that do eyebrows and stuff everywhere.
Well, that's, so our ordinance defines what tattooing is. If you go to the definition section, it specifically prohibits, or I should say, does not categorize permanent makeup as tattooing. So
Okay.
that's why that is allowed and goes on, but body art essentially defines what the difference
Okay.
between the two.
And that's a good point.
Okay, I have an opinion, which is not, I personally do not like tattoos. I have daughters that have them. I don't like tattoos. That has nothing to do with it. What we have, in my opinion, is we have a business that wants to come and survive in Tremonton. And to say, okay, they can't come because they have tattoos is a bunch of crap. Okay? That's, I shouldn't.
No,
Well,
you said
recording,
crap,
all right.
And you're on camera.
I think, and I know where it's a hard decision to make. It is, but I can see that they're a legitimate business trying to provide what they think is a service to our community. And there's, frankly, what 35% of the people have tattoos. 50% of my children have tattoos. Okay, so I'm way above, and I have a real hard time saying, because 30% of the people want a tattoo, but we don't like tattoos, so we're not going to have tattoos in our town. And that just kind of goes against my grain. Okay, they're a legitimate, honest people that want to provide what people want. And I have, that's my opinion. I think it's really kind of
My
lofty
biggest
opinion.
concern is we don't know what we want to do with downtown.
That's true.
Okay, and so by bringing in businesses downtown, we're already starting to establish what we want to do with it before we've come up with a plan. Okay, but I still think we need to provide an area for them to survive here in Tremonton.
Mhm.
So that's where I'm at on it. I don't know if I'm comfortable with a downtown Main Street one, but I'm comfortable with trying to localize them someplace that they can still survive and thrive.
So what do we want to do?
So we got it on commercial and commercial highway.
So this-
Any of that area.
So the conditions then, you have an established set of conditions?
Mm-mm.
Or but administratively, we would establish a set of conditions?
No, I just think legislatively, it's best that you establish the conditions. Administratively, we
You would-
evaluate
you
and
would
apply
Apply the conditions.
against an application.
Okay. So do we need a couple of weeks to walk through that? Because that kind of seems to me like that's sort of the direction we're heading in right here, is that, we go ahead and do this, but that there would be a certain set of conditions that, we would require. And I'm just wondering, because I think it'd be fair for everybody here to know kind of what, where we're going on this thing. And I guess I kind of, again, don't see, just because, for whatever reason, I think we need to look at this from a standpoint of, state regulations, the health board regulations, and as long as we're doing that, I think, the way I look at it. Maybe I'm wrong.
So what direction do we want to go?
Well, okay, so coming back to these conditions then, you know, I think it's only fair that we sort of move on this thing a little bit and, you know, don't keep putting the business off it. But it sounds to me like we got to establish something. So how do we do that? How do we sort of establish?
We have something put together by next council meeting with some
That's
conditions
kind of where I'm
and
coming from.
We'll make a motion.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we consider adopting ordinance number 18-14 with the exception that we delay this for till our next city council meeting, allowing us to come together with a set of conditions that we can go back to and you know, go forward with this one way or the other, whichever way the council wants to go. We come together with that. So
Isn't that more of a table?
Mhm.
But we no, well, not really, because I'm thinking what we need to do is we need to come together with some kind of conditions now. So I guess I'm just taking it to the next step.
Yeah,
Is where I'm kind of looking at it.
we get in trouble if we adopt the ordinance.
Yeah, you can't adopt it.
And so I wouldn't adopt it. I would.
We need.
Well, okay, so maybe I reword this, that we don't, we're just going to take some time and put together some conditions that we can work with until our next meeting, and then we approach it and either adopt or don't adopt it. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
Well, I think that one thing that is telling about our community is that there was a public hearing, and it's been on the front page of the Leader,
And the Herald Journal.
and nothing. So whatever way we go,
You making a motion?
no. But I'm just saying that nobody showed up and nobody said anything at a public hearing.
So we have a motion by Lyle, I think.
Yes.
What was it?
Repeat it, Lyle.
No, I'm not comfortable unless you can't do a half ordinance, you almost got
I
to
didn't
table
do
it.
it. I just said we're going to put together, let's go ahead and put together some conditions and then revisit the ordinance
So you
at
table
our
it?
next meeting. Well, if that's what you want to call it, yes. And but not just table it, but I want some action and something happen.
Without a doubt.
For the next meeting.
Before the next meeting. We have something to give these people a yes or a no for
Okay.
the next meeting.
We have Lyle with the motion.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Brett seconded. Roll call.
That's not a roll call.
Is it?
It's just a
No,
motion.
it's just a motion.
It's just a
It's
motion?
not
Okay. Non-roll call. Who's in favor? Yes.
Aye.
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 Against? Okay, motion passes. Table for two, whenever our next city council meeting is. And we'll have-
October 3rd?
It'll be actually
October
longer than
2nd.
2 weeks, won't it? Maybe 2 weeks.
October 2nd.
Maybe next meeting.
All right.
Planning commission or city staff? doing the conditions? Or are you planning commission speak over?
What's that?
I'll talk to you after.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
we got it?
When's the next land use board meeting?
The
Basically,
planning.
Wednesday is what the land use is, but unless they postpone them or cancel them, it's every Wednesday.
Well, planning commission could discuss some of the conditions as well.
All right, be thinking about it. We got 2 weeks. Okay. A discussion and consideration of approving resolution 18-46, adopting a wall mural artist professional services agreement between Jason Essen and Tremonton City to paint a wall mural of the first grand entry of the 1928 Box Elder County Rodeo to be located at the Box Elder County Fairgrounds at 1200 West Main Street, Tremonton, Utah. Any questions on this one, guys? Girl.
How long
This
we
is a
been
good
through
thing.
it? Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. Who was the other?
I don't think that's,
Oh, here's the
actually, I
other.
don't think it was 1928, I think it was 1925.
Oh, okay.
At least the images and some of the things. The first grand entry was 1925.
Was it? Okay, so,
Good to know.
all right. Anybody want to make a motion on this?
I will. Oh.
Can I just ask a question? Why did we choose Jason then?
So the Arts Council did meet. We had two submittals, proposals and qualifications. Both were well qualified. Erica Burke, if I'm saying his name correctly, pronouncing it correctly, does some great work. He travels the world actually, and does murals. I think in the end, some of the discussion points, I'm reaching back to my memory because it's been several weeks, but one of the things that Jason's proposal included was a stronger, I would say a stronger proposal on what he was going to do. Jason put a sketch together. The other artist more or less took our photo simulated rendering and just put it back as his proposed image. And so it made it hard to understand exactly, you know, what he was going to do to make that image fit on the wall. I think that they also felt that Jason's artistic style better matched the composition. Eric does some great work, but you know, Jason's done a lot of older photos recreated out of sepia tones, and that was a little different than the artistic styles and products that Eric's done in the past. So I think the Arts Council felt like they'd like to consider Eric at some point in the future as our program grows. And he's out of Reno and felt like he would do a good job as well.
And does Jason have a time that he's going to be done on this other one?
I talked to him about it. He told me he felt like he was going to be done within several weeks, and then start, the next mural.
Probably in the spring, huh?
Well, I think he'll paint as long as the weather's good, and it sort of depends. It kind of ebbs and flows with everything that he has going on in life, from his work. Because there was a time when he had to work a lot of overtime to just family obligations. And
So is there a timetable on this new one?
so the grant funding that we have for it does contemplate it being completed by, I think it's April of next year. I do think that Jason can make some good progress in the fall. But again, it's a little bit dependent on the weather cooperating. But I think tabs have been pretty, I don't want to speak for them, but as issues have arose on some of our other projects relative to the timing, they've been flexible and understanding of some of those issues.
Okay.
And I think that this mural Jason's doing right now, I've been super impressed with. I mean, the detail he put into those mountains, and it looks like real
It looks
mountains.
like it's the same mountain.
Yeah.
It does. And
Yeah.
So he's
That-
getting
he put
better
some
and
thought
better
into
every
that.
year. So
And it looks like Nick Nesson.
yeah, it does. It really does.
Is that on purpose?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm.
I see now. I mean, I would say Jason is always great. He puts in such great effort.
Yeah.
Spends a lot of time, and I think in part that's part of the reason why it takes him a while, in addition to his other obligations. But he does spend a lot of time.
So I'll second his motion.
There you go.
Motion made by Lyle, seconded by Brett. All in, roll call.
Mr. Mayor, could I just clarify one thing?
Yes.
So what's being proposed is in sepia tone, so it's essentially the recreation. He did add a color option, but I don't think the Arts Council was recommending the color.
Yeah, we want it to look old.
Okay.
Oh, it will.
Roll call.
Red eye.
Lyle H. I.
Jeff, I.
Diana, I.
Lionel Vance, aye.
Thank you. Discussion and consideration of changing the distance an officer can live from the city and the time allowed for relocation of new hires. Chief.
So it's no secret, it's kind of difficult right now to recruit and hire in law enforcement. Some of the agencies around us are making changes to their distance requirements where people live in order to expand their recruiting pools, and I think we ought to do the same thing to keep up. I don't want to expand it so far that we don't still have a quick response time, but enough to kind of allow us more options with hiring.
What is our limit now?
No, we just, ours was
Our
one
limit right
direction.
now is 15 miles from Tremonton, or a longer distance anywhere down along I-15 to the border. So I think it makes a lot more sense to expand that 15 distance to 25 miles. And we can already live up to like 30 miles away if we're going all the way down to the border, but make it just a circumference.
Does that grab
It's a-
Logan?
It's a lot clearer. What's that?
Would that grab Logan?
It would grab part of Logan.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was one of the changes I wanted to make. And the second is how long an officer has to relocate here. We're getting a lot of lateral transfers in law enforcement. People are just moving from agency to agency, the way things have changed. Right now, we only allow 90 days, and I think that's difficult on people who already have a home, already have their children in school. I think we ought to expand that to a year's time to move to the city.
I don't see a problem with that. One question I did have, is it a common thing for the police officers to be able to drive their cars home?
Yes, that's,
Okay, I
that's
mean, it's-
almost ubiquitous around the state.
Okay.
Almost every agency has that now.
Well, I think I've seen one up in Garland that's from Ogden.
Yes. Ogden's one of the agencies that just expanded their boundaries, so
Okay.
they can live up to, I want to say, 55 miles away from Ogden now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Okay. Council, you good with that?
So,
Yeah.
just for clarification,
Yes.
so it does include that provision, that's what Councilman Reese was, I think, hitting upon by his question, that allows for, during this year period of time, the officer to
That's
take
included in
home
it.
the vehicle.
Yes, it includes that too, so that they're not, having to drive their own car back and forth. Now, if they're not here within that year's time, then obviously there's a problem, and they wouldn't be able to take their vehicle home anymore. Because they will be living at some distance prior to relocating.
Council,
I think if you're good with it,
I think it's a good idea. I think it's a little bit overdue to expand it a bit.
Make a motion, we make that change, changing the distance of an officer can live from the city and turn allowed for relocation for new hires.
second it.
motion made by
That was
Jack,
easy.
seconded by Lyle and Diana. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, John?
I was just going to clarify this issue too. This is in Lexipol. It is the Tremonton City Police Department manual, and the fire department has one as well. And you might recall that we adopted, I think it was an ordinance that essentially granted city staff, the department head or the chief, I think the attorney, myself, the ability to make these changes without coming to the council. But that said, there's certain times when we feel like it is appropriate to have the council, make the policy decision. And this was one of those cases, even though the authority had been granted. So I just wanted to clarify that, because in the future on some of the minor ones, we may exercise that authority you've already granted to us and make those decisions without coming to the council.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Calendar items and previous assignments. Any review of the calendar, anything we need to be reviewing?
We don't have any current items.
Past assignments? City manager reports and comments.
I don't have any at this time.
Land use report and comments.
They haven't had a meeting, have they?
We have not. It's been weeks.
Department head. No. Council reports. Brett.
I don't have anything.
Don't have anything this time.
Got it.
I just want to say that the league meetings were excellent this time. I think the best I've ever been to. Even the legislative session is really informative.
And
Thanks
you
for doing that.
represented us well?
Yeah.
What was the entertainment?
David Archuleta.
That's why she
Oh,
went.
wow.
No,
Wow.
but Bob came down and it was good.
Yeah, I would like to hear him.
Thank you, Diana.
Don't have anything.
I don't really have anything either, so. We need to go into a closed session.
I'll make a motion, we go into closed session.
Motion made by Lyle,
Second,
second by Diana, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We need, yes,
I came in here to talk about something. I don't know how many times.
too late. Sorry, you'll have to come another time.
All right.
Public
Come
comment time's
next
over.
on the second, and when they have the session about